trail?
Probably not. Nice.
Mike Baskowski, runner, Springville, New York.
Hey everybody, top of the mountain with Mike, 10,400 feet. Mike's in from New York and we're doing a little 3-day training camp with him here. And today's day 1. And we're kind of getting him acclimated to the altitude. So we did 6 miles of an uphill climb with 4,000 feet of climbing. So quite steep, and to manage that effort and to help acclimate for the next 3 days, we really started easy, kind of with a hike run, a lot of hiking, a lot of in between running intervals, just to keep the effort as easy as possible. And that's the key when you're at altitude, maybe for the first time or not used to the altitude. And so focus on getting a longer and more easy of a warm-up when you're going to altitude and going to be getting into the altitude. So that'll really help you kind of acutely acclimate. Then once we got kind of our warm-up in, we then began to run, but since this is so steep, we did running intervals where at some point we were doing maybe 2 switchbacks at a time, where we would run for 2 switchbacks, stop. I would bring Mike's heart rate back down to about 140. We found that was good for him to recover, and then we'd start running again. So we were always kind of run for a little bit, stop and rest. Run for a little bit, stop and rest. And this is just part of the training for him. We know he can hike this, but he couldn't run it steadily because he's just not used to the grade and the altitude. So to allow the training to take hold, we had to do running intervals with a lot of a rest in between, maybe 1 to 2 minutes, depending on where we are at in the train. So we did that all the way up, 2/3 of the way, and then it got steep to where we got to about 9,000 feet and then hiked from there. Okay, so again, that hiking at the end at altitude is acclimating him for tomorrow. So he felt really good. He didn't believe me when I said it was going to get easier as we went if we did this right, but you know, he got a little tired, but it did actually get a little bit better as we got higher. And that's the key to keeping things easy and appropriate when you first start out at altitude. The other thing we really worked on is that he has a tendency to kind of just focus on landing, and we wanted him to work on his force production. Got a little wind, 10,000 feet, not bad for 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
But we used the grade. At some points we were climbing 500 feet per mile, so very steep. And because of that grade, the grade is a great coach to help understand force production. What I mean by that is when you land, providing force into the ground to propel yourself forward. Drive into the ground. If I drive into the ground and my leg's like this, I want to provide force into the ground to where my leg is almost straight. And Mike has a tendency to just land and not take it that next step of providing just a little bit of a leg extension to propel himself forward, which then softens his landing. So what we noticed when he focused on providing force into the ground to propel himself forward, his footstep became much more quiet. Nice. When we first started out, I could hear a real heavy landing. And so then once I started to coach him on the force production, I couldn't hear him land anymore. It was a much softer landing that allowed him to spring forward and provide force into the ground to propel him up the hill in a good way.
Yeah, because it was actually easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Becomes more efficient.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not just landing and spending more time on the ground, which improves your cadence. Okay? And what else that will do for him is that he's notoriously, he's an old hockey player. So his quads are his strength. He's just getting a lot of eccentric loading on that quad and overtaxing his quad and not getting very much glute activity. So that's another key aspect for him to start training that force production and propelling himself forward versus just landing and spending a lot of time on each foot with a lower cadence. And again, it quieted him up. I couldn't even hear him run up the hill.
My legs weren't as heavy either.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just provided so much efficiency, and we used the terrain as the teacher. So if you have a short, really steep hill at home, imagine running up that steep hill just like you would imagine running up a flight of stairs. Or if you don't have a steep hill, use a flight of stairs. We used that as a coaching tip for him to visually think about as he was running up the mountain, because he knows what it's like to run up his flight of stairs. And if you imagine running up a hill like a flight of stairs, it helps you to get that force into the ground, or feel it while you're running up a flight of stairs, because you can't run up a flight of stairs without having force, or you wouldn't go anywhere. So running up a flight of stairs is a great teacher and a training tool for you to understand what Mike's going through, going 10K up 4,000 feet of climbing to 10,000 feet today. Okay? Much more efficient, and he was able to do it. Yep. You know, again, straight from New York, and he was able to get up to 10,000 feet being efficient. Okay? So, all right, we're now headed down, and we just earned ourselves a beer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we'll share a beer with you in a little bit.
Yeah.
Over and out.
See ya.
Cheers.